Hello folks, it's the Pace Chaser again. Welcome to another one of my videos. This is part 6 of the series looking at photographs of the buses and coaches of East Yorkshire Motor Services. And in this one we're going to be looking at the late 1990s, so from 1995 until around 1999 and 2000. This was a time of consolidation for the East Yorkshire fleet. As mentioned in the last instalment, the bus war in Hull had ended in the early months of 1994, and the reduced vehicle requirement allowed the company to take stock of its fleet and to withdraw the more eclectic members and to standardise to some extent, whilst the improvement in the balance sheet following the end of wasteful competition meant that new bus deliveries could once again ramp up. I'm not intending to go into full detail on all of the photographs in the video as there are a lot to get through, but we'll start with an exception to prove the rule. This is vehicle 146 registered EYH 876. It was a Volvo B10M with Plaxton Paramount 3500 bodywork. It was new in May 1988, not to East Yorkshire but to Kingston upon Hull City Transport, or KHCT, as part of its Kingstonian coach fleet, and it was numbered 52 and registered E52WAG. As mentioned in part 5 of this series, KHCT was sold to Cleveland Transit in December 1993. Less than a year later, in November 1994, Cleveland Transit, including KHCT, was purchased by Stagecoach Holdings. Stagecoach didn't really go in for the kind of work that Kingstonian did, i.e. excursions, tours and private hire, so it was no real surprise that they sold the Kingstonian operation to East Yorkshire, who definitely did go in for that sort of work, in March 1997. Indeed, the biggest surprise was that the sale took as long as it did. So 52 found itself making a short journey from Ferrinsway Depot up to East Yorkshire's Anleby Road Garage, and as we said, it was renumbered 146 and registered EYH 876. As we see in this shot in the yard of Anleby Road Garage in September 1998. In 2005 the coach was reunited with its original registration number, then in June 2006 it was transferred to East Yorkshire subsidiary Whittle of Kidderminster, where it became fleet number 10 and was re-registered again to RCE 510. Withdrawn in December 2007 and again registered E52WAG, the coach was sold to Tees Valley of Marske in January 2008. And the final report of it was with a dealer in Eaglescliffe on Teesside in 2009. We met the National Greenways in part 5 of the series. Initially allocated to Scarborough, 3 of them were transferred to Hull around early 1997 as a result of the arrival of 3 low-floor Dennis Darts at Scarborough Depot, and the other Greenways later joined them. Here we see 255 IIL 2155 on the muck, in other words the parking area behind Hull bus station, between runs to Orchard Park on Service 5, a route shared at the time with Stagecoach. In this September 1998 view, the bus retains Scarborough and District fleet names. Several of the Greenways became driver training buses, including 259, IIL 2159, which at one time had been Leyland National 186. By the time of this photograph in Scarborough, it was numbered 9906 in the ancillary vehicle fleet. As you can see, the driver trainers tended to carry the rare EYMS Group logo as opposed to the usual fleet names. And the idea of that was they could work for Scarborough and District or East Yorkshire without changing the fleet names over. In the late 90s, East Yorkshire took a number of batches of the semi-integral Optare Prisma, which was a Mercedes 0405 with a standard Mercedes front and Optare bodywork. They were firm favourites of mine, being comfortable to ride in and having performance like the proverbial off a shovel. Sadly, as step entrance buses, many had relatively short careers as low-floor buses swept onto the scene. Here in Short Street, part of Hull bus station, we see 271 P271 NRH, delivered in August 1996, and about to head on to the stand for a 181 to Hesel. It is presumably substituted for a non-available Optare Excel low-floor bus, as the latter type usually worked the Hesel routes. After East Yorkshire service, 271 went through a variety of other owners, including TD Travel of Morley and an operator in the High Wycombe area. East Yorkshire's first low-floor buses were 3 Dennis Darts at Scarborough, mentioned earlier, but the type bought in quantity was the Optare Excel. With Cummins engine and Allison gearbox, the Excel should have been well beaten, but they were dogged with reliability problems from the start. East Yorkshire's early purchases were retired early, whilst the later batches were re-engined with Mercedes units, which gave them a normal length of service with the company. From the first batch delivered in late 1996 and early 1997, we see 274 P274 NRH about to move around from Short Street to the stand for a 66 to Hesel. This first batch of Excels were purchased for the routes 66 and 181 between Hull and Hesel. The initial batch of Excels were followed by a small number of short wheelbase versions for Scarborough, and then some further long wheelbase models for the Hull to Willoughby services and the Walton Street Park and Ride. Prior to commencement of the Park and Ride contract, the buses worked alongside their sisters, and here we see 295 S295 RAG in Willoughby Square after arriving from Hull on a 44 service. The bus would shortly go around the roundabout behind the photographer to the pickup point for the return journey. Note the subtle Park and Ride branding on the side. Despite being just 2 months old at the time of this October 1998 photograph, the bus has already broken a number blind reel and been fitted with a non-matching replacement. Back to the coaches now with fleet number 357, registered 3277KH. This bus was new to Finglands of Rusholme in Manchester in January 1986, registered C666DJA. It was a Volvo B10M with Catano Algarve body, and it was still part of the Finglands fleet when EYMS Group purchased Finglands in 1992. Transferred to East Yorkshire in the mid-90s, it's seen in this shot in the yard of Annaby Road Garage in June 1998. The vehicle had a long life for East Yorkshire, finally going for scrap in 2011 at the ripe old age of 25. Now we met the indestructible ex-United Mercedes 608s in part 5 of this series, and here we see 406 C406 VVN in Bridlington bus station in April 1997. This was one of the vehicles which had been reseated with high back seats in the early 1990s to operate on the Fylingdales contract from Scarborough Depot, but after the contract ceased, it found itself working at Bridlington, as did many of the ordinary bus seated examples. 11 years old in this view, 406 looks smart in the maroon and cream livery, which had been introduced in 1995. On the same day as the previous shot, we see bus seated 408 C408 VVN, also in Bridlington bus station. The bus returns the old Scarborough Skipper silver livery and looks to be in need of a repaint. As I mentioned in part 5, some of the Mercedes 608s joined the ancillary fleet when their service days were over. By May 1998, 408 had been retired from public service and repainted in EYMS Group blue livery for use as a sports and social club minibus. It's seen here in Annaby Road Garage in Hull. Also seen in May 1998, 411 C411 VVN was still slogging away on service in Beverley bus station, loading for a trip to Hesel on Route 180. With its 20-seat capacity, the run may prove to be a tight squeeze. The vehicle carries the pre-1995 red and white bus livery, which a couple of the batch received on transfer to Hull during the bus wars of 1992 and 1993. So we return now to Bridlington in 1997 for view of 413 C413 VVN loading up for Bempton Lane. Still in Scarborough Skipper silver livery, the bus looks quite smart, apart from a rusty patch underneath the emergency door on the offside. Despite an influx of newer vehicles, Scarborough kept a couple of its 608Ds until around early 1998. Here we see 417 C417 VVN in Samaritan's overall advert livery, apart from the front, and 419 C419 VVN in fleet colours, parked at Westwood Bus Park next to the railway station, with a dual-purpose Olympian double-decker and a rebodied Leyland Leopard, visible in the background through the windows of 417. By May of 1998, 419 had transferred to Bridlington, and it's seen here in the bus station, still carrying its Scarborough and District fleet names. The bus behind is Frodingham Coaches Mercedes 814D P399 MDT. This operator was purchased by East Yorkshire in November 2001, but this particular vehicle had left the fleet by then. We also saw the 1989 Reeve Burgess bodied Mercedes 811 and 709 minibuses in part 5 of this series. As mentioned then, the 811s and most of the 709s were new to Scarborough, with the balance of the 709s going to Beverley. By 1997, the Scarborough contingent had begun to follow the 608 predecessors in transferring to Bridlington, where we see 429 F429 GAT and Mercedes 811 in April of that year. The bus is still in the original Scarborough skipper livery. May 1998 sees dual purpose seated Mercedes 709D 438 F438 GAT, also having transferred to Bridlington. This bus has been repainted in the 1995 maroon fleet livery, and in this shot it retains its Scarborough and District fleet names. New to Beverley Depot in 1989 and still there in April 1997 when this shot was taken, was bus seated Mercedes 709D 445 F445 GAT, seen in Beverley Bus Station on local service 3 to Molescroft. The bus has also been repainted in a maroon and cream livery. Unlike on double-deckers, there was no variation in the livery for single-deck vehicles, whether they had bus or high-back seats. New in October 1979, Eastern Coachworks body Bristol VR 505, JKH 505V, had a 14'6" high body and a Leyland engine. It's seen here in the yard of Annaby Road Garage in September 1998. The bus was sold for scrap in the following month, so it's possibly already withdrawn in this shot. As can be seen, it carries the maroon and cream livery but retains the original white on black destination blinds, which by this point gave it a somewhat old-fashioned appearance. And just next to it you can see a Bristol LH driver trainer as well, in the yellow livery carrying the EYMS Group logo on the front. Another September 1998 shot now in the same location, the yard of Annaby Road Garage. We see sister vehicle 507 JKH 507V. This bus carried the older red and grey livery but had new dayglow blinds fitted. As mentioned in the previous instalment of this series, the hybrid VRs had a step behind the driver's cab leading up into the saloon. This tended to trip passengers up despite ever increasing amounts of yellow and black chevrons and warning notices. 507 was rebuilt in the early 1990s with heightened steps up from the road, but with the problem step eradicated. Although successful, it was thought that the vehicles were too old to justify the cost of rebuilding the rest, so 507 remained unique. 507 had 4 months left of service in this shot, being sold for scrap in January 1999. Next door to 507 is Mark II VR 882 GAK 482N. This 1974 bus was purchased from Yorkshire Traction in December 1990 after several months on loan, and remarkably survived with East Yorkshire until August 1999, at which point it was withdrawn and exported to Holland, and it's believed still to exist as a static camper van. King Edward Street in Hull City Centre looks busy in this May 1998 shot. A 13'8" tall low-height Bristol VR with Gardner engine 522 WKH 522X, heading for North Ferriby on service 153. The village was always shown as just Ferriby on destination blinds. 522 looks smart in a maroon livery with dayglow destination blinds and would soldier on with East Yorkshire until 2002. In July and August 1990, 5 Bristol VRs were modified to DIPTAC, or Disabled Persons Transport Advisory Committee standards, to meet the requirements for some Humberside County Council contract services. As can be seen in this shot, the work involved fitting a split-level entrance step, easy for persons with reduced mobility to negotiate, the fitment of high-visibility orange handrails around the entrance area and the front of the lower saloon, shark's tooth step-edge markings and a near-side route number blind. I never saw the latter in use, even when the vehicles were newly modified. The bus in this shot is 523 WKH 523X. The DIPTAC vehicles were initially allocated to Driffield after modification, but by this shot in September 1998, 523 had gravitated to Hull, and it's seen behind Annaby Road Garage. The bus was withdrawn and scrapped in May 2003 after 22 years of service to East Yorkshire, one of the last VRs to survive in the fleet. Incidentally, all of the Annaby Road Garage shots in this feature were taken with permission. This was still the era when a friendly request would usually be granted in the affirmative. I used to go down to the garage with my father, who retired from East Yorkshire in 1995 after 32 years as a driver. So he'd have a catch up with his former colleagues while I wandered around photographing the buses. Happy days. The Northern Counties bodied Leyland Olympians of the early 1990s plugged away quietly throughout the decade and beyond. Repainted into the maroon and cream livery, 1992's 565 J565 HAT is seen on the muck between journeys to Hornsey on Route 240. As I mentioned in one of the previous instalments, Hornsey Depot were usually allocated at least one modern bus, and in this October 1998 shot 565 is it. One of the ex-Eastbourne Olympians, which we'll see shortly, is alongside. As I mentioned in parts 3 and 5 of this series, the AEC route masters in Hull on routes 56 and 56A were replaced by Leyland Olympians in 1995. Like the RMs, the Olympians were painted in the traditional blue and primrose livery, as with 568 J568 HAT, seen in September 1998 on the muck. Shortly afterwards, this batch were replaced on the routes by new Volvo Olympians, which also sported the traditional colours, and 568 will be painted back into standard fleet livery. Another traditional liveried bus was 569 J569 HAT, also seen on the muck, but this time in May 1998. The livery suited these buses, and indeed any buses that carried it, and many local enthusiasts wished that Peter Ship would adopt it as standard, even though the maroon livery was very attractive. Next to 569 in this view is one of the ex-Cleveland Transit rebodied Leyland Atlanteans. We met Optare Spectra 571 in part 5 of this series, and here it's seen in June 1998 in the yard of Anderby Road Garage, by which time it acquired this unique version of the maroon and cream livery. There's also the original one-piece upper deck front window replaced with a two-piece unit. Not particularly popular with drivers, the Optare spent increasing amounts of time in the yard by this point. In around 1999, 571 received the standard dual-purpose version of the maroon livery, with cream upper deck window surrounds and roof and a maroon stripe above the upper deck windows. It's seen in this condition in an undated view in Hull bus station, loading for Orchard Park via Beverley Road on Route 4, and with a stagecoach Volvo B10M with Northern Counties body ahead of it. A varied lineup now in the yard of Anderby Road Garage in Hull in September 1998. Northern Counties bodied Leyland Olympian 580 K580 RRH in the centre dates from June 1993 and is carrying a destination blind for the at the time notorious Sydney Smith School. To its offside is 619 E854 DPN, new to Eastbourne buses as fleet number 54 in June 1988 and acquired exactly 10 years later by East Yorkshire along with 9 of its sisters. Another Northern Counties bodied Leyland Olympian, but this time with a Cummins L10 engine instead of 580's Gardner unit. 619 gave just under 10 years service to East Yorkshire, being withdrawn in 2007. Nearest to the camera is Park Royal bodied Leyland Atlantean 938 UNA 848S. New to Greater Manchester PTE in December 1977, East Yorkshire bought it in 1993 from the PTE's successor GM Buses. The bus worked for the Manchester subsidiary of Finlands for a few years from 1994 onwards, before coming back to the main fleet. A dedicated school bus by this point, as witnessed by the permanent contract destination painted onto the screen, 938 remarkably survived in service to around 2003. It was sold for preservation and is currently believed to be undergoing restoration. Another 1993 Leyland Olympian with Northern Counties body, 582 K582 RRH is seen here in Bridlington bus station, substituting for a classic line Volvo on Route 121 from Scarborough to Hull. A healthy load of people appears to be waiting to board. Making its way through Bridlington en route to Scarborough is Alexander Royale bodied Volvo Olympian 598 N598 BRH. Part of a batch of 14 delivered in November and December 1995, these buses were unique among Alexander Royales in being built to low height specification. This batch was split between Witherinsea Garage for the 76 group of services to and from Hull and Driffield Garage for the Hull to Scarborough Route 121. After a couple of years they were swapped over to even out the mileage between buses, i.e. the Withensea buses transferred to Driffield and the Driffield buses transferred to Withensea. Both routes were marketed as Classic Line, as seen between the decks of 598 in this shot, and the buses carried route details below the lower deck windows. We see 598 again in this April 1997 shot in Beverley bus station. Note that the bus has lost the route branding below the windows, presumably in preparation for transfer to Withensea, where it will receive the letter in Hull, Heddon, Pattrington, Withensea. I was never a fan of these Classic Line Volvo Olympians. The low height bodies were claustrophobic and the legroom was pretty appalling. Most of the buses transferred to Manchester to work for Finland after low floor vehicles took over on the 76 and 121 routes. Another of the eastbound Olympians now, 612 E847 DPN, which is seen in Scarborough next to native Olympian 550 H550 VAT. This view is actually from the early 2000s, as both buses and the vehicle behind are carrying the revised version of the maroon livery with a cream skirt. I could never decide if this was an improvement or not on the original version of the livery. In this September 1998 view, Bristol VR 710 PUF 591R is withdrawn in the yard of Allenby Road Garage, Hull. The blind rails have been removed and the fleet names and fleet numbers painted out. The bus was acquired from United with the latter's depot in Scarborough in 1986. It was new to Southdown Motor Services in May 1977, and was registered by them, but was diverted to United before entering service. In November 1998 it was sold to Big Apple Tours in New York, but sadly it went for scrap in 2001. Also registered by Southdown but transferred to United before entering service and acquired by East Yorkshire in 1986 was 712 PUF 593R. It's in here with Scarborough and District fleet names on its maroon livery in Bridlington bus station on the 120 service to Scarborough. I vividly remember my father starting this bus up on the garage forecourt at Allenby Road one cold morning in around 1990 when it was part of the Hull allocation. As the bus revved to build air pressure, I glanced out of the rear window to see that the entire road behind, the houses opposite and the garage itself had vanished in a cloud of grey exhaust. The distinctive member of the fleet was Highbridge Bristol VR 717 PKM 117R. Externally this was due to the Bristol VR badge on the grille, whereas internally the imprint of a Hastings bus's sticker was clearly visible on the destination blind cover upstairs. New to Maidstone and District in March 1977, the bus passed to Hastings and District in 1983 when M&D was split up. Hastings and District became part of the Stagecoach Group in the late 1980s and then became part of the South Coast Buses operation, who sold PKM 117R to a dealer in the Morecambe area in February 1993. East Yorkshire purchased it and my father had the job of bringing it from Morecambe to Hull. It was a popular machine with the Hull drivers and worked hard until it was withdrawn and scrapped in April 1999. It's in here in May 1998 offloading passengers from Orchard Park in King Edward Street, Hull, whilst inbound on Route 3. Back to the ex-United Bristol VRs now with 725 BPT 925S, seen in September 1998 in the yard of Allenby Road Garage. The bus has acquired a later style of front panel with square indicator and side light units. Transferred from Scarborough to Hull Garage in 1989, the bus went to Primrose Valley Coaches at Filey, another East Yorkshire subsidiary, between 1992 and 1994. Back in the main fleet and at Hull, it gained the maroon livery in 1997. It was initially withdrawn in November 1998 but was reinstated in early 1999 and sent back up to Scarborough. Finally withdrawn in September 2000, it was exported to Portland, Oregon in the USA and is believed still to exist. Sticking with the ex-United Bristol VRs, next we have 741 DUP 741S, another one to transfer from Scarborough to Hull in 1989, the bus later worked from Beverley Depot. It's seen here in September 1997, swinging around the corner at Monument Bridge in Hull, bound for Allenby on Route 152. Withdrawal came in February 2000 and the bus was another to be exported to Big Apple Tours in New York. Next we see 754 DUP 754S in Bridlington bus station in May 1998. Presumably the bus had not long transferred to Bridlington depot as it's lacking a suitable destination blind, and is instead carrying the destination on a slip of paper in the windscreen. Withdrawn in November 1999, 754 briefly became a mobile disco in Manchester before being scrapped in November 2000. The bus war in Hull in 1992 and 1993 saw a large number of second-hand vehicles acquired by East Yorkshire to operate the extra competitive services. Peter Shipp would have liked to buy Olympians, but decent second-hand Olympians were like gold dust at the time, so Bristol VRs and Leyland Atlanteans had to suffice. One of the VRs was ex-Lincolnshire road car 779 KTL 29V, new to Lincolnshire as fleet number 1946 in October 1979, and acquired by East Yorkshire in February 1994, just as the bus war was finally being resolved. Seen in another Annaby Road garage shot in May 1998, the bus was withdrawn and scrapped in September 2002. A few months earlier, in May 1998, 779 is in a similar position to the last shot. Note the replacement fixed upper deck front windows, the welcome aboard sign that was part of the maroon livery, and the mid to late 90s fad of small advertisements on the side rather than one large advert. Yorkshire Traction was a good source of second-hand Bristol VRs for East Yorkshire, and here in October 1997 we see 788 LAK 938W, newest Traction 938 in June 1981, and acquired by East Yorkshire in December 1992. The bus is still in red and grey livery with white number blind reels and Dayglow destination blind, and has acquired a folding school bus sign, which here is folded up out of use, below the driver's windscreen. Captured on the muck between runs to the University of Hull student accommodation at the Lawns, Cottingham, a Witherington Garage Classic Line Volvo Olympian is alongside. Another ex-Tracky bus was 789 MWG 939X, new in August 1981, and again purchased by East Yorkshire in December 1992. It's seen in Beverley bus station alongside ex-United 793, SGR 793V, also now at Beverley after a stint pounding near 1079 Road from Pocklington Garage. 788 from the last photo was withdrawn relatively early in April 1998 and exported to Denver, Colorado. It was last reported in California in 2014. 789 lasted until July 2000 of East Yorkshire but was then scrapped, while 793 was another to be exported, in this case in November 1999 to Kansas City. It was last reported at Miami Beach, Florida in 2022 and may well still exist. Another survivor was 902 ANC 918T, a Park Royal bodied Leyland Atlantean which had been new to Greater Manchester PTE in November 1978. Acquired from GM buses in 1992, the bus is seen here on the muck in October 1997. Generally kept for school duties by this date, it has worked in on ordinary public service on Route 47 from Willoughby. The driver was not impressed with the allocation. East Yorkshire had rebuilt the destination blind from the 3-piece GMPTE fitting to the version seen here in order to fit standard blind reels. This vehicle survived into the early 2000s. A slightly bizarre tale next. In September 1976, East Yorkshire took delivery of its first 3 Mark III Bristol VRs. They were 13'8" tall, low-height buses with Leyland engines and vinyl seats, and were numbered 958 to 960, PAT 958R to PAT 960R. The 3 buses were withdrawn and scrapped in 1990 as part of normal fleet replacement. Then strangely in April 1991, 3 more low-height 13'8" tall Bristol VRs with Leyland engines and vinyl seats, in other words identical to the scrap buses, were purchased second-hand. The 3 took the vacant fleet numbers 958 to 960. They came from Trent Motor Traction and had been new between December 1976 and April 1977. The new 959 was scrapped in May 1996, but the other 2 lasted until 1998, and here we see 958 PVO 821R in King Edward Street in Hull City Centre, heading for Cottingham on Route 60 in May 1998. Withdrawn in September of that year, the bus was exported to New York, where it was scrapped in 2001. New as Trent 810 960 RAU 810R. It's in here behind Anderby Road Garage in May 1998. Withdrawn in August of that year, it had a slightly less exotic disposal to Barnard of Curtin and Lindsay in North Lincolnshire, although when they finished with it in 2004 it did make it to Griesfeld in Germany. Note the top-mounted electric windscreen wipers in contrast to the bottom-mounted air-operated versions seen on the other Bristol VRs so far. Looking slightly faded in the old livery is 996 GRF 696V, seen on the muck in September 1998. New to Pottery's motor traction, or PMT for short. In 1979 the bus came to East Yorkshire in September 1992 and stayed until January 1999. By 2002 it was in Holland, where it later served as a mobile cinema and was fitted with a Gardner engine to replace the Leyland 501 unit it had when with PMT and East Yorkshire. We discussed the Bristol VRs that were new to London Country in part 5 of this series. I keep referring to part 5, I will put a link to it in the description of this video. But here we see 998 PPH 464R with a school bus sign unfolded at Anderby Road Garage in September 1998. Purchased from Badgerline in September 1992, 998 was withdrawn just a month after this picture was taken in October 1998 and sold to Stevenson's of Easingwold in North Yorkshire. In September 1992, the original East Yorkshire number series that had started at 1 in 1926 was finally filled up with vehicle 999, another ex-Badgerline and London Country Bristol VR. It would have been the highest numbered vehicle ever operated, except for an ex-Finland's fleet line which transferred to the main fleet but kept its Finland's number of 1707. 999 PPH 470R is seen in Beverley Bus Station in April 1997 in the company of ex-PMT 993 BRF 688T. 993 was also acquired by East Yorkshire in September 1992 and both buses were withdrawn in October 1998. 993 was scrapped whilst 999 joined 998 with Stevenson's of Easingwold. Now we've got a sneak peek at a photo from the next part of this series. This is a Volvo City Bus open topper, and the reason I've included it here is it's wearing a bow tie. Now I normally finish with a bit of publicity material from East Yorkshire, and that's what I'm going to do now. So I just thought I'd show you this to explain the next item that I'm going to show. And there it is. This is a bow tie leaflet for the open top buses in Scarborough. Now I would have thought this was from the 2000s era, but you can see the date on it is from the 4th of May 1999. So it falls into the remit of this video. The idea was quite simple. As I mentioned in the last part of the series, the seafront service at Scarborough was operated by 3 different companies at this point. East Yorkshire, Shoreline Sun Cruisers, both of whom still work it today actually. I'm doing this video in 2024 and both of those companies are still active on Scarborough seafront. And the third company in the 90s was Appleby's, who ceased trading in the early 2000s. Now East Yorkshire sold a series of day tickets and things in Scarborough, which were valid on their buses but not on Shoreline Sun Cruisers or Appleby's, and they found that the passengers were struggling to differentiate the buses one from the other. A lot of them carried overall adverts for all 3 operators, so there were lots and lots of different colours and it wasn't always easy to recognise who was operating which bus. So East Yorkshire came up with the idea of putting a bow tie on the front of its buses, and then it just marketed them as look for the one with the bow tie, and that's the bus that your day ticket is valid on. So that's where that comes from. And just to finish, we've got a Scarborough area bus timetable for low floor buses. You can see they were marketed with the slogan nice and easy for everyone. And a bit of a stylised view there of an Optare Excel on the front of the timetable. So that's it for this part of the series. Do check out the other videos in this series if you haven't already. Part 1 looked at the East Yorkshire buses before 1969. Part 2 covered the National Bus Company era between 1969 and 1986. Part 3 covered the AEC Route Master buses that were operated by East Yorkshire. Part 4 looks at the early privatisation era from 1986 through to 1990, and Part 5 looked at the early 90s from 1990 through to 1995, the time of the bus wars in Hull. I'll put a link in the description to this one, as I said, to Part 5 of the series, and you can follow the links in the descriptions from there back to the previous ones as well, if you'd like to watch those. The next part of the series should be the last one, I think. Part 7 will look at the 2000s. I'll be doing that very shortly. By the time you watch this video, it's probably already done. But yeah, part 7 will cover the 2000s. So if you have enjoyed the video, please click the like button. It makes it more visible to other people, so more people can find it and watch it. And please do consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you as always for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.